Welcome to a football show, Monday edition, brought to you by Sinkers Beverages. That is Paul Kuharsky of paulkuharsky.com, and I am Braden Gall. You can get to me on the internet at Braden Gall. Use Sinkers Beverages for all your USA watch party needs coming up late on Thursday night. PK, good afternoon. How are you, sir?
I'm well. Kind of taking a low-key week this week.
Yeah.
Trying to get some school stuff in line, but running behind on that. I need some people to make some things available that are not available.
For your school or for your son's school?
No, for Belmont.
Okay, for your schooling, your professorial career.
Correct.
All right. So, look, Jeffery Simmons signs a huge contract. You also wrote a story about his new role. It's going to get tweaked, I guess. Not a new role, but a tweaked role in this Titans defense. So we're going to have some fun looking at the defense today. We're going to project the 53-man roster on the defensive side. We'll talk through expectations for the Titans defense. Should everything go well and go right, what could the secondary and this front seven look like, and what could that mean in terms of wins and losses, and are they a top half of the defense? Are they closing ground on the Texans? Where are they in the division? All that kind of stuff. But also just talk through Jeffery Simmons and sort of where he's located in the hierarchy of this Titans organization, which is, clearly the key player and the face of the franchise moving forward. Cam Ward, of course, could take over that coming up. So we got a lot of stuff to do today. If you'd like to get involved, please jump into the comment section. We'll have time for you guys to ask some questions. So if you want to ask some questions, please, today we have some time. But let's try to focus on some defense here as we're gonna talk a lot of defense. Good afternoon, says Go Forth. Good to see you. That's right. You got to choose. Messi's already scored. Sorry, spoiler alert. Messi's already scored and is now the all-time leading goal scorer in the history of the World Cup, which is cool, and it happened in run of play, not a penalty, so it's even cooler.
Good cool that he missed a penalty, yeah.
That's right. Listen, Bustin' Diamond says, hey, guys, hope y'all's Father's Day were great. Hope everybody out there who is a father and just has a father or has a father-like figure, that you had a great time celebrating those people in your life. Happy Father's Day to you, PK. I hope you had a good one.
Yeah, very mellow.
Yeah, it was very mellow. Obviously we got some stuff to do today. So if you want to get involved, rate, review, subscribe on the YouTube page as well. Thumbs up, notifications turned on. You got your USA Soccer shirt on, so I assume you had a good Friday afternoon, as we all did. If you want to catch Club and Country, that is coming. I guess actually the podcast just got posted. It's Ben Wright of 615 Soccer, Steve Cavendish, and myself talking through the yellow card strategy for the Turkey match, as well as what we learned about Christian Pulisic's injury, placing Ricardo Pepi into the lineup, playing a 2-forward formation, how they played against Australia, their path in the knockout round, which looks better and better every day, apparently. Terrific. So lots of stuff. If you want to talk, if you want some expert analysis from Ben and from Cav, please go check out Club and Country Podcast. The podcast is out. The YouTube video will be posted a little bit later today, so turn on those notifications. PK, how you feeling about the USA?
I didn't hear Pochettino say it, but I heard that he said it, that he's sitting all the yellow card guys, which I don't see why you wouldn't, given that this game will change nothing. So rest Pulisic, sit those 4 guys. You have capable depth, get them some experience. I don't know. I'm going to call them Turkey because they've been Turkey my whole life. They either come out like completely flat and anxious to go home, or determined to show that they were something better than one of the first 2 teams eliminated from the tournament.
Which they really are, actually. I mean,
they haven't looked good at all.
They haven't.
Either way, it's gone perfectly. I think people may be a little too excited about the Australia game. It certainly got the job done and looked good at moments, but fortunate goals both. And can certainly be better, be cleaner. Great to get a clean sheet with the defense that we have and with the shaky goalie, who I think will still hurt us at some point. But weird to watch a World Cup game with the U.S. in it that doesn't matter. How is that?
Paul, you just did an entire analysis of general USA type of comments. Oh, I don't know about our defense. I'm not sure about our goaltending. The goals were a little lucky, blah, blah, blah. And it was a 2-0 win to get 6 points in the group stage. We are in a new place here, man. This is crazy.
I know. And the lineup now, I mean, Bosnia and or Qatar.
I think, yeah.
And I would love to draw Qatar. That's a game you absolutely should win. Bosnia, not that far behind, I don't think.
They've had some good moments in the tournament.
Belgium in the game after that, who is hardly the heavyweight it's been in the past. Certainly a challenging team, but it's not France, Spain, Germany, England, Argentina. So
right now, it could also be Egypt. Right now, if Egypt wins that group, they just won their first ever World Cup match yesterday.
Rather have them. I mean,
Yeah.
certainly rather have them than the teams I just ticked off. It's going to be somebody hard.
It will either be Belgium or Egypt. Now, it could also be like maybe, I think there's a percentage chance that it could be Ecuador, but they haven't looked good. So I think it's really between Egypt and Belgium.
And all those teams that we just listed to play in the 32 and the 16, you'll take it. And if you get to the 8, God bless.
Then it's Spain at that point. So you're going to have to go through those teams at some point if you want to compete for an actual championship, which I'm not allowing myself to actually get excited about. I'm excited about winning a second round of 16 match in the history of our country. Like we beat Mexico in 2002, I think.
2002, which was a high point in Korea, right?
And that's the only match and it was Mexico, which nobody would. While it's a great win over your rival, it is not considered beating, Brazil or Germany in those tournaments. And so, beating Belgium actually would feel. While Belgium has not been challenging at all this year, they've had 2 draws so far. They look like a golden generation that is old. Yep. That's how they look. And so I think beating Belgium would feel more substantial, especially considering Belgium just ran us out of Atlanta in January, I guess. So I don't know, but the path looks better. The team looks better. 6 points. They can rest all 11 starters if they want to, in theory. I don't think they should. I think you play Freeze and let him because Turkey likes to shoot. So just let Freeze get some reps. He has 2 saves in 2 matches. So
I think the media and the coverage really got off the hook for Pulisic in the first game. Like, oh, he waved to the crowd. He's fine. Yeah. The FIFA telecast never showed him, and it's not a concern. And now he'll miss 2 games, and we will have seen him for 1/2 of 3 games. And Jenny Taft, saw him wave to the crowd and say it was okay and did no further reporting and hasn't gotten any grief for it. It's poor job by Fox.
Well, I don't think in the game you can do any reporting on that, but I think by the time –
well, she could talk to U.S. soccer officials who knew that something was up.
But I mean, even Pulisic himself, though, in the post-game interview, and not to get back to this is now a media commentary, but the post-game interview, the guy followed up. I can't remember who did the post-game interview of the first match against Paraguay, and Christian gave a very clean answer the first time, which is, yeah, it's just a small thing. It's no big deal. I'll be back at training. I'll be fine. And then he followed up with him, kind of pressing the issue. It's like, oh, so you're going to be fine? And he goes, well, if I can go, I'll it doesn't matter if I'm 100%. Like he kind of waffled a little bit on a second answer. And that's where I was like, oh, wait a second. And Pulisic has a history of this. And they are a team that can get the way they've played with Pulisic being as active as he was in the first half. They have a chance to pull some upsets and beat really good teams. Without Pulisic, I don't know what their upside is.
This thing will be back in America in our lifetime. And I do think it's time for Fox or whoever gives them the billions that it takes to get it to wrest a little control from FIFA. I mean, Chicago did it. Chicago said, screw you. We're not like, what do we get out of this? And there's stories out, Rahm Emanuel, the mayor of Chicago said, they told us we get put on the map. Well, we're on the map. And there's a story about Los Angeles where they told Los Angeles we'll put you on the map. And Los Angeles was like, yeah, have you seen the Hollywood sign? Are you familiar with the movie business? But more than that, I think when there's a point come, and you and Cavendish should talk about this on your other show, when there's a point come that the network that really funds a huge share of this gets control of the TV feed. And why should we be watching people in the stands instead of quicker replays? Why should we be waiting so long on VAR reviews? I don't understand why FIFA should have a worldwide feed and determine what American television viewers see from an American television company that is probably spending the most money of everybody involved in this whole thing. Fight back a litlittle bit on that. Everybody's a pushover to FIFA.
No, Chicago is famously said, "No, we're good." They weren't good. They wanted to wasn't this back in the 90s, right? And they wanted to, they wanted to completely renovate Soldier Field or something, put a dome on it. They wanted to put a dome on Soldier Field, I think was their request, and they were like, Chicago's like, no, we're not going to do that.
And they go to Kansas City, which I mean, Kansas City's a great soccer town, but it's not a better venue than Soldier Field.
No, it's not.
It's not a better city than Chicago by any.
No question.
So, I mean, the tournament's missed out by not being in Chicago.
No, sure. I agree. And needless to say, we're both very excited. so this is honestly, this is the question here. The question is how far can the Titans get if their defense plays like the 49ers defense a year previous under Saleh, which is interesting because I think they were dead last in pressures and sacks. San Francisco was. So maybe
they were very, very hurt.
They were. So
but they played, some games in a way that were like good enough to win. But that's the thing. If you take that to San Francisco, you're saying, all right, defense, get us through this game with Brock Purdy, doing enough to win on offense where you hold on for us. Yeah. And so I think that's a difficult way to look at the Titans, where you say, all right, defense, do enough to hold on here to let Cam Ward win the game. Yeah. It's not a great comparison because my respect level for Brock Purdy, having seen him against the Titans and having watched him more last year, because I think they were on TV more favorably for me, has grown by leaps and bounds. And Brock Purdy is a really good quarterback.
Smart player.
And I don't think if Cam Ward even reaches like the height of what I think he can do this year, is going to be as good as Brock Purdy is at his best. Yeah. And so I think that's a tough comparison. Honestly, I think you can look at, can the Titans be what San Francisco's defense is when it's mostly healthy, which is, a top 10, top 8, defense. Yeah. And I think maybe on the edge of that. I think the Titans defense can be good. I don't know if it has the playmakers, the individuals beyond Simmons.
We got a lot of this stuff to discuss. You guys are already kind of lighting up the comments here. Rob Nell says, smart move extending Simmons. Can you imagine him getting a larger contract if Titans were bidding against other teams for him? I don't know about that.
2 years away from him being a free agent, and it was not a concern.
And we'll get to the details, but $100 million guaranteed is pretty big. Jabari says, or Martin says, for the defense to win means the Titans' offensive line has to be able to run the football and protect Cam. I think that's certainly part of the equation. Yes, says Big 2033, your offense needs to stay on the field. Ed Henry says, seems like linebackers in this defense should do well, and some may overachieve playing behind this front. Would imagine some free runs to ball carriers. We'll get to that because you could argue that Simmons' role last year was to do that for Cedric Gray and Cody Barton. He's going to have a slightly different role this year. If you read about it, of course, paulkuharsky.com, you'll know all about this, so follow along. We'll talk about the extension. We'll talk about the new defense. We'll take a look at the projected depth chart, kind of our 53-man version of the defense, and set some expectations around what this unit could be for the Titans at this stage now that we're kind of into the offseason. But the news, of course, Jeffery Simmons on Friday signing a $105 million extension for 3 years with $100 million guaranteed. $35.3 million on average makes him the highest paid defensive interior lineman, defensive tackle, I believe, ever in the history of the league. That's a 5-year total. He's 5 years total under contract. We don't have all the details about buyouts and guaranteed this and guaranteed that and, outs in the contract. But this takes him through 2030. That's 5 more seasons. He will turn 29 in July. So this takes him through his year 34 season, which is pretty old for a big, massive, dominant defensive tackle. So your thoughts first and foremost, PK, on the contract. You had to get it done. You clearly circled him as the guy that you are going to build this franchise around probably a couple of years ago when you gave him the contract. It has been the right move so far. And he rewarded this team with an all-pro season last year, maturity, leadership, all the things you want to see from a 28-year-old. He delivered that last season for the Titans defense.
I think he did everything you could ask. Leadership became much more mature. Really tough 2 years to stand up and be the chief spokesman for a team where you don't have control of a lot of the things that could flip the team into a winner. Drastic amount of change with the front office and with the coaching staff and with the players around you. Handled himself with class, became less sour, abided by things that they set up for the team, found ways outside the team to improve, as a slimmer, better version of himself, wants to be a Titan for life. You don't know if it gets to end that way or not. But he is this team, very much the face of this franchise, and did things the right way and got what he deserved. The only other two guys that the Titans potentially have contractual control of in 2030 are Carnell Tate and
Keldrick
Falk, with 5th-year options on their rookie deals. So presuming that they pan out, the Titans will either extend them or exercise those 5th-year options. Those three are your long-term core.
I feel like you need more than 3 players to play an NFL game. I think you do.
You do.
I think
but that's a long time away.
Good afternoon, gents, says Daniel Caribbean. That's true. Spencer says our cornerback room is terrifying. One injury and we'll have a plumber at outside corner. We'll get to that in just a second. But this is a good way to start the expectation conversation for Simmons. And Bustin says, Paul, if he has 3 to 5 more years of top-level production, in your eyes as a Hall of Fame, is he a Hall of Fame candidate? Now, I would argue let's kind of caveat those 3 to 5 years. If you do 2 more years of all pro and then it kind of just slowly, 3 years of like taking a step back, I think would be expected and would be normal. And then maybe the 5th year he kind of falls off. I don't know. Where is he? And obviously, we're not giving away anything here, but I'm just curious, what would be your process to analyze a guy who, he is among the best defensive lineman tackles of his generation while he played. He is among the best.
His career's overlap with Aaron Donald. So the standard is Aaron Donald. So to me, it'll be, how does he measure up to Aaron Donald? How much lesser of a player than Aaron Donald is he? I think it'd be hard for him to catch Aaron Donald. I don't think he'll be Aaron Donald. And so that's how I'd look at it. How much winning do the Titans do in the next 4 and 5 years? I think a guy like Jeffery Simmons needs to be part of some teams that offset these last 4 years. He was on a couple of good teams, but he needs to be on a couple of good teams again.
Let me follow up on that. What if he has like 3 straight all-pro seasons and is clearly number 2 behind Donald as the best player at his position of his era?
Yeah, I think
how much does the team's inability to pick a GM, a coach, a quarterback, how much should that impact your vote on Jeffery Simmons?
Well, it's not a decider, but particularly, I shouldn't say it. I just think it's definitely a mark that goes beside your name when you're differentiating guys. If you did it as part of a team that had a presence in its conference, and that was a factor. And if you don't have January games on your resume where you made influential plays in games that people remember or will talk about, or for a team that made noise, it's an empty column, and it's a column that tends to count, especially when you're looking to differentiate yourself from other guys. And there are other good defensive tackles around the league who also have the potential to add all pro seasons, and defensive player of the year, and he could well be in the running for that if they're a good football team in the next, say, 2 years while he's still premium peak guy. Also got to stay healthy. He's missed some games here and there. The elbow's been a pain in his ass. He finally got that cleaned up, and that's good. But what was it? A hamstring maybe that held him out of 2 games here or something there. Yeah. Full seasons tend to give you full numbers. And the fuller numbers he can have, double-digit sacks, get people's attention from the interior. And that leads us into the conversation about this defense, which, you can lead me there. But the way he spoke about this sure sounds it makes the older defenses sound a lot more restrictive than I ever kind of thought about them.
It's really fascinating because I think his Hall of Fame conversation is actually very similar to his location in the like the life cycle of the Titans organization, because he was on some very good teams. He was a starting, important, critical piece on an AFC championship run and a team that won the 1 seed in the AFC. Like he already has a few of those, and to Sergeant Bubbles, always making great points, Sergeant Bubbles. To be fair, Simmons had a really good game against the Bengals in 2022. So I think he has more good stuff on his resume in terms of the team than I think we realize, because it's gotten so bad so fast. But I am curious, even if Salah's the right guy, even if Borgonzi's the right guy, and even if Cam Ward's the right person, it still might take some time for them to become a true challenger, other than just 8 or 9 or 10 wins where they actually are making deep playoff runs. And it may not, fans have to, maybe this is not what people want to hear the 2 days after he signed his extension, but there's a chance that he doesn't actually line up with when the Titans are elite. Like if the Titans get back to being elite and great, it might be year 4 of this contract when he's a role player, or maybe there's an out in the deal and they've decided to move on. Like it may not overlap.
If it's not with Cam, then that's going to be a timing problem probably for Jeff, because if it's not for Cam, that takes out the next 2 years, and then it's 2 years for the next quarterback. So you're talking 4 years. So that's the end of this contract. Here's the thing about what he said about the aggression of this defense and wanting to be on the other side of the line of scrimmage and everything, which sounds great. And it makes it sound like he was restricted in the old defense. Now we know there are times for sure, particularly under Vrabel, where they wanted to cage the quarterback, and they weren't all about going and getting him no matter what, right? Especially with some mobile guys, and that was somewhat restrictive. And I haven't had a chance to ask Saleh about this, but it was a cardinal sin in Vrabel's defense for those 6 years to go past the quarterback, right? And I suspect that Saleh might be, tell me if you agree with this, okay with you getting a step or a step and a half beyond the quarterback if you still have a good path to getting to the quarterback from behind, or even getting a chance to swipe at the ball from behind and create a turnover as an unseen or unfelt defender. Would you think that's probably part of the recipe here?
Yeah, I think so. Watching, White Cotton coach, right? The way he coaches in practice, typical D-line coach, very aggressive, very, loud. But reading your story and thinking about Simmons' comments, like this is a guy, look, 67 tackles last year, 17 tackles for loss, 11 sacks. He was very productive behind the line of scrimmage. But it's the fast and violent thing that strikes me, like that we just want this. Speaking through Saleh, like I'm okay jerking the leash and bringing you back into more control if I need to, but I want you all to play on the edge of chaos, and I want you all to play aggressively so that you are dictating to the offensive line and to the quarterback. You are the one driving the tempo of what's happening around them. You are pushing the pocket. You are moving players. You may outrun a play. You may overrun the play, and that will be the counteract to that, right, is the draws. You're going to run draws, and you're going to run screens, and you have to figure out ways to slow it down. I would assume that Saleh, Bradley, White Cotton want them to err on the side of attack and aggression, and then we can coach you back a little bit if we run into an offense that's figured that out. And that's how I would
question. Here's the question I'll ask you on this, as I've thought about it more since I wrote the piece and since Jeff talked about this, right? He made it sound like, my instinct and my first thing, and the two technique he talked about, the thing is to get on the guard immediately, and then, you deal with the double team and sort through things. But so he's not going to go to the guard now. He's going to try to go to the quarterback. But he's still going to wind up with that double team. So he's making it sound like, well, I can get 2 or 3 yards on the other side of the line of scrimmage first. Well, that's great if he's taking on the double team 2 or 3 yards further upfield, but he's still taking on the double team.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So this idea that now he's free to go, doesn't make the double team go away. So he's still going to draw the same attention. It's still going to slow. Can he reshape the pocket a little bit more, a little bit more often by being a little bit more aggressive off the line of scrimmage rather than bracing for action? Yeah, that's a change in mentality, right? Yeah. Instead of bracing right at the line, I'm getting upfield. But let's not mistake it for like, oh, he can be a new kind of terror now because he's going. Well, he's still going to draw this kind of attention. and he's still going to have to fight through the same two guys to get where he's going, which is the same place he was going before.
Yeah. I think if you are picking a shoulder to attack a guard, right, which is what John Franklin Myers wants to do also, which is why they'll be fascinating next to each other. If you're picking a shoulder on a guard, let's say it's the interior, and you're going to drive through that guy to try to get to the quarterback, to move the quarterback off his spot, left or right, back, whatever. What's going to happen is the second lineman's going to peel off and just carry you where you're going already, right? Instead of trying to hold ground and shed and allow your linebackers to flow, you're sort of forcing a guard to to take you where you're going. And if a quarterback is good enough or they're trained enough that they're going to take you to his off shoulder and then he steps to the right, that could create opportunity for a quarterback to play. It also could create opportunity for a backside edge to crash the pocket and make a lot of plays. So you just
how his block.
Right. We just don't know what it's going to look like. I think in general, looking at the size and strength of a Falk, Franklin Myers, Simmons, Johnson front four, push the pocket and attack. And I think that will be a strength, at least to start the season, until offenses react to it and figure out how to shift coverage, shift offensive, like they're going to shift protections. And so I just think there'll be a really what does Franklin Myers do really, really well? He attacks guards up the field and creates pressure. Simmons is going to have the freedom to do that. And then they have two big giant edges that can handle the outside if they need to. I think it's a really interesting front four. I think it's really interesting.
Oh, for sure.
I don't know how many sacks they get, but I think it's really interesting.
And you're going to go around the division, and I think the comparison to Houston is very interesting.
I think so. I hadn't planned on doing that yet, but we could do it now because I do think their speed and ability to get to the quarterback off the edge is just so much better than everybody else really in all of football. I mean, they're my pick to win the AFC because of it. But if you told me the Titans were clearly the second best defense in the division, I don't think I'd be that surprised at the end of the year. I don't think it's that crazy.
No, I don't think it would be that crazy to project that either. But it's a lot more on faith than it is for Houston. I mean, we've seen Houston do it.
I mean, I'm assuming they're the best. I'm saying they can be definitively better than the Colts and the Jags. And what's interesting about Houston is their second round draft pick, the defensive tackle out of Ohio State, Caden McDonald. He is such a great run stuffing player that they've added a piece with specific skills to the outside edge rushers who are getting off the edge and coming after people. So their defensive line's getting even better this year. Although Danico Autry is not on the team anymore.
Yeah, I was surprised to see that Danico Autry, according to what I could find, is unsigned. Now, I'm sure he's not what he was, but I think Danico Autry would still be a valuable person. I don't know Houston's right defensive tackle, Tommy Togiai. He came from San Francisco in 24, so he's obviously somebody that D'Amico Ryans knows well. But to have Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter as your ends, those are some ends. And Sheldon Rankins is obviously a great interior player. And then they've got McDonald behind him, like you're talking about, a second round pick. Logan Hall is not trash, who came over from Tampa.
Linebacking core is pretty solid. Safeties, the safeties and the nickelbacks are very good. They got good corners.
Is back there as a deep guy. He probably doesn't make that team, but those edges, so the Titans' strength is really in the middle, and the Texans' strength is really on the edge. And if you've got a choice there, I'd rather have my strength on the edge.
I think that's fair. I think the front four, I think there's no real weakness with this front four. I don't think it means they're going to create a lot of quarterback pressures, from the edge. But I do think that they don't have I think Keldrick Falk is going to quickly learn and become a very good player for them. I think Jermaine Johnson, again, they don't have the true wide nine speed guy yet, but it doesn't mean they don't have a good starting front four that's going to be very dependable. I think most sets of downs.
Daniel Caribbean's asking about that starting ends. We would put Falk and Johnson as the primary ends. That doesn't mean starting, but if you're looking at the best four, it's JFM, Simmons, Falk, and Johnson. Now that's going to be scrambled at times. It may not be your best rush group, but it's your best group.
Yep, that's correct. That's correct. All right. So quickly, anything else on the attack stuff that you want to touch on in terms of what you learned in writing the story, or
Well, I think
expectations for Simmons?
I should have mentioned there that and this might be a story in itself. White Cotton is a disciple of Jim Washburn, which should excite people. Jim Washburn got the most out of guys. He kept a running tally on that whiteboard in the defensive line room about the contracts that guys got and the money they made coming out of there. That's going to be a motivating factor, obviously, for Jermaine Johnson, who's a year away from free agency. They could already put Simmons' number up on the board, $100 million guaranteed, out of 105 on this contract. But I think, we've watched a lot and we've put up a lot of videos about their get off stuff and all the tricky get off stuff that he's doing. And Washburn was willing, and I'm presuming Saleh and White Cotton will be willing. You don't want to be undisciplined, right? You don't want to take off sides, but there's a little
I know where
bit
you're going here
to be on the edge. And Washburn was willing to take a penalty once in a while in exchange for, first off, putting a little fear into the offensive line and the quarterback.
To use a soccer term, it's to put those tackles on their back foot.
Right. Put them on their back foot and to have your guys amped up like, hey, we're really riding the edge here.
I think this group could do very well with that mentality. So I think Simmons, most of his career has been played right there on that part of the edge of the game, and I think it's going to be a fun thing for fans to watch. So let's do this. Let's look at the defensive depth chart and let's kind of predict who's going to make the roster. This is early, obviously preseason, pre-camp. This is just now that we've seen OTAs and minicamp. Here's what this defense could look like, the roster, and then from there we'll take a look at setting expectations. But first, a couple of things here. First, PaulKuharsky.com, always. Sinkers Beverages. Make sure you check out Sinkers Beverages as that you can subscribe to the In Crowd, which gives you the opportunity to get all kinds of like cool customer appreciation freebies, access to really cool allocations and bourbons. They have a super knowledgeable staff. They've got a great craft beer fridge that is an award-winning craft beer fridge. They also have tons of international beer. They have an international beer fridge as well. So if you're into that kind of stuff, I prefer the local. East Nashville Beer Works, Yazoo, Tennessee Brew Works, for example. And obviously, huge bourbon selection, very knowledgeable wine staff. Again, my girl, Savannah, I went in there for my World Cup watch party. And I was like, she hooked me up with, this is the girl who hooked me up in Thanksgiving with a bunch of like white blends. I don't know anything about wine, Paul, that everybody, all the in-laws, the grandparents, the wife, all huge hit. She picked out this one bottle of like white blend and everybody loved it. And a little bit nicer. I went and I said, no, we're going to be at a watch party. I need something a little bit more approachable, right? Like, give me something that like $12 bottle of Portuguese Vinho Verde that everybody loves. And now I'm just going back and buying the $12 stuff all the time. So like they're willing to find the right thing that you need, hook you up, make you look good doing it. Check out Sinkers Beverages. They're great. And they're small companies supported by all of you here in Nashville. So there you go. Okay. Let's work quickly through the starting lineup here, or maybe not the starting lineup, but the depth chart. If you're projecting the 53, we'll start with defensive line because Jeffery Simmons is the man of the hour. So Jeffery Simmons, John Franklin Myers, Solomon Thomas. Would you go Jordan Elliott and draft pick Jackie Marshall as those five? Is that about right? What do you think of that group?
Yeah, I think that's about right. There's one guy who and I think they've got good depth there. I think Cam Horsley's a good player. I think Timothy Horn is a good player. I could see those guys practice squad or ending up somewhere in the league. I have to say, I noticed in camp when a lot of those people weren't around, or some of them weren't around, a guy working much higher than I would have expected. Not that I'm saying he's on the roster. Just keep an eye on him. Ernest Brown IV.
You going to tell us anything more about him?
I don't know anything about him. He worked higher than I expected.
Okay.
He worked higher sometimes than Horsley and Horn and Marshall and guys whose names you know better.
Okay.
But yeah, I say Simmons, Franklin Myers, Thomas for sure top three. Elliott, I would presume 4, Marshall, I would presume 5. And I think it's hard to keep a 6th interior.
Yeah. Quickly here from Spencer. Does the way Saleh has his linebackers play allow for Simmons and John Franklin Myers to be more aggressive? Maybe.
I don't think they see a reason for them not to be aggressive.
I also think it's the other way around. I think it's the way he has his line play allows his linebackers to be more aggressive, right? I think it's kind of the other way around. Should we assume more D-line will make roster than in the past years, asks Ed, and should we look at safety depth combined with nickel cornerback? That's an interesting two-parter there.
They're going to rotate 8 guys, maybe 9 on a Sunday, which means they keep 9, maybe 10.
I think nickel corner and safety could be more of a combo platter conversation. In fact, I might just put all defensive backs into a conversation. I think there's starting corners, starting safeties, and then there's sort of like a hodgepodge of players that can do a lot of things for you is maybe how I would look at that.
Let's do end first.
And then Rob's asking about linebackers and special teams, so we'll get to that. Edge players, Jermaine Johnson, Keldrick Falk, I think both clearly on the roster. Femi Oladejo, Jacob Martin, and those are the 4 I would have. Jalen Harrell, Truman Jones. Who else you got?
Jalen Harrell does nothing for me. Malik Herring was out of all of those signings, like the cheapest. I think he might have gotten nothing to sign bonus wise. And Truman Jones is, I think, just a guy. So that would
4 maybe.
That would 4, and that would get us to 9. And then some of those interior guys, obviously, can play outside, will play outside a little bit. They really want them. Saleh's really emphasized guys focusing on one position. But, Franklin Myers can go outside. He talked about Jeffery Simmons not playing outside. Doesn't really want his focus on anything but going straight up the middle. But some of those guys, Solomon Thomas, in a big defense can be outside.
You think it's 9 total between the two positions? That's it? Or do you think he goes to 10?
Out of what we're looking at, unless somebody like an Ernest Brown, a Cam Horsley, a Timothy Horn, a Malik Herring had a great camp, and there's weakness somewhere else at the bottom of the roster, I think 9.
Jalen Harrell did, to Daniel Caribbean's point here, Jalen Harrell did have granted, it was at the end of a bad season with no other real options. He was getting to the quarterback occasionally, but that's all I'm saying.
I don't think it was
the end of last year.
I don't look at Jalen Harrell and think that guy's going to carry that over, and he's on the verge of something.
Well, I guess my argument is, and I don't think so either, but I think the argument is that he went from no sacks and handful of tackles to 4.5 sacks and 25 tackles, and he just showed some progress. And if you continue that progress with far fewer snaps, could he be a 5th pass rusher? I don't know.
Behind a million people, different system, different coaches.
That's true.
Maybe
that's true. Those are all valid. Linebacker: Cedric Gray, Cody Barton, Anthony Hill, and then Diabate and Mousy.
I've heard good things about Mousy. Now he's got to obviously show it in pads. Like him a lot on special teams, and I think they like what they've seen on defense. I think arrow down probably on James Williams, just brought in by different people for a different defense.
I didn't mention him.
Haven't heard his name at all.
Nick seems to like him in spots coming off the edge because of his length and how rangy he is, that maybe you just turn him loose.
Again, though, we've not heard a lot about, and I think Saleh seems to rebuff every conversation about using a guy like in a different spot. Anthony Hill as a rusher? No. Well, Simmons outside? No.
I'm saying more permanently.
No.
I'm saying more permanently, like give him a chance in camp because you don't think he's going to make the roster as a linebacker. And frankly, I don't think he's an off-ball player. Like, I just don't think he processes the game. Like, I think he's an attack dog. And if you want to put him on special teams or if you want to put him on the edge and say attack, he is a large, long, rangy player. And what could hurt if you're going to cut him because he's not going to make the team as an off-ball linebacker? Why not turn him loose at edge. I don't know. I'm just
I noticed Chad Banks more than I noticed Diabate during camp.
Okay.
So I don't know who emerges maybe as the last guy there. It could be they're looking for somebody.
So you think Mossie's number 4, and then you think Diabate at all fills the spot there at linebacker. Safety, you've got Amani Hooker, Kevin Winston are your starters, and I think fans should be very excited about Kevin Winston. I'm not holding back on that. Tony Adams is first off the bench there, and then you've got Jarek Reed, Alante Taylor, Cordell Flott, Marcus Harris. I've got Micah Robinson and Joshua Williams down. That would be 9 total.
I think Jarek Reed is the next best safety, or Kendall Brooks.
I've got Reed on here as the 4th safety.
Yeah. Micah Robinson, look, he was getting destroyed by Tate. He recovered a little bit at the end. He's not good enough. Look, to me, it's Flott, Taylor, Williams as outside, and then one of these guys needs to really make some gains, or they need to find somebody to be their 4th outside corner. I'm not comfortable with the depth at all. I don't know who the next corner at nickel is. I've got Jalen McMurray, one of the undrafted rookies behind Marcus Harris. I think that's a big hole. I think Tony Adams is. They did say something about Alante Taylor, who he said all along is not going to be now said part-time nickel. But, if he's going to nickel, that means Joshua Williams, would have to really play well outside. So look, that's the biggest depth concern on this roster is corner and safety, defensive back depth beyond the starters, the only good depth guys. Joshua Williams, I think, is promising. Tony Adams has some skill, but he also has some problems. He's had some real tackling problems.
I really like the starters in the secondary. And while I think the starters at edge may not be as versatile and may not give you the thing you expect out of a true pass rusher, I think the quality of player and the depth at edge is better than it is at corner. And I really like the starters at corner and safety. But they are a single injury to any of their 5 starters. Flott, Taylor, Harris, let's go Hooker, and let's go Winston. They are one injury away from the thing crumbling.
I'm kind of taking this week off, but I just wrote this down. I'm going to write this piece before the offseason's over. Defensive backs who played in the last month of the last 4 years. I bet you there are close to double-digit names of guys that we all cringe at.
Because we started this each of the last 2 seasons. Like last year, it was you got Brownlee and you got Snead, and the defense is better. It's fixed. Remember Chidobe Awuzie a couple years ago? Oh, he's a starter now, and they all got hurt.
Yeah, a lot of
sounds
guys.
familiar.
I
agree. But if you can draft a handful of Marcus Harris's, or find those guys through scout team or free agents or whatever, you can start to build some depth. But you just got to have a lot of bodies out there that you trust. And I don't know. We'll see.
And they've had some, look, Daryl Baker was not the reason they were losing games. I mean, he did okay. Yeah. So find the next Daryl Baker. Now, I think Joshua Williams could be, maybe a notch better than Daryl Baker. But Joshua Williams is the 3, Daryl Baker, I think, started more like the 5.
The 6, yeah, I agree. So here's the thing. With that group as your starting group or your depth group or your roster, I'm just curious. I think if everything goes well and Simmons is an all-pro and the new free agents are there, and let's just knock a few games off of the guys at the depth positions because it's football. So maybe you get 15 games out of Taylor and 13 out of Flott or something like that, right? They start for most of the year, but they miss some games. You got to sub in some guys at times when you need some support. Winston develops into the player you think he is. I think Hill eventually takes over as your starter, but you're rotating those 3 guys through the linebacking core. You don't need a double-digit edge guy because, to Ed's point here, if you get 20 sacks from your interior, which I think is asking a lot, but let's say you get 15 sacks from your interior, you don't have to put as much pressure on the exterior guys. I still think with Saleh and Bradley and White Cotton and some bona fide legitimate pieces, Cedric Gray, Franklin Myers, Simmons, Hooker, I think this defense can be a upper half of the NFL defense. I'd put him in that 14 to 18 range. in the NFL in terms of like yards per play, points allowed, yards per game, etc. The major categories. And if you do that, I think you can look at this team as getting to 7, 8, 9, battling in that range for wins. And you went and got Saleh for this reason. Like, that is why you went with an experienced head coach on defense, was to give you an opportunity to do sort of what the Jets did. And then you hope that Brian Daboll and Cam Ward are better than what the Jets were.
Yeah, it immediately comes paired with that. You say, could be 12th to 18th, and that could be pretty good. And the automatic question that comes with it is, what's Cam Ward doing?
Yep.
So what's Cam Ward doing? And Daniel has, I could see them keeping 11 defensive. You keep 11 defensive linemen, man, for a position that's got 4 guys on the field at the same time. You're maximum going to have 9 active on game day, or you're throwing other positions off. It's all got to be in balance. 11 is a load. Yeah. I mean, that's like keeping 5 tight ends. They keep 5 tight ends because they thought the 5 tight ends were the best on their team. Well, 5 weeks in, they're not 5 tight ends anymore because the gravity of the roster pulls you to even things out in other positions.
It's like fantasy.
And having 2 tight ends inactive on game day doesn't help you.
It's it's like very fantasy football where you're like, man, I got this 3rd tight end in fantasy football because he was such a great value, and I think he's going to be a superstar sleeper. And then you're like, wait a second, I only have 2 receivers. It's like, all right. So, I think the defense. I think fans. I am optimistic about certain things on the offense, the receiving core, the running back room. I don't know what to make of Ward. I think he'll make progress, but I don't know what to make yet. I don't know what to make of the offensive line. I think the defensive line is better than I expected it to be coming out of OTAs and minicamp. I think they're in good shape. I think the linebacking core is in pretty good shape. I think the starting secondary is really interesting, and then the depth is a major concern. So coming out of OTAs and minicamp, do you have any different perspectives on the defense where we did not see a lot of those guys at all for a big chunk of the offseason program?
Well, I mean, I think the newest thing was Jeff talking at the end there and giving us a real feel for just how aggressive things are up front. I think he characterized it in a different way than we'd heard it characterized, or it came from a different place that gave us a real sense for the newness or the difference between what it's been and what it's going to be. Now, we need to see it in practice, obviously,
with pads,
and see the rest of these guys. And we haven't seen, he wasn't on the field for any of this, even in slow-mo, 3/4 speed out of pads. So it's a lot to look forward to in camp. The 3 joint workouts have been announced. Those will be 3 big days for us to get a real early look at what this team is going to look like.
Quick here from Spencer, because the guy we didn't really touch on a lot, but he is kind of a critical piece as a 2nd-round pick, 2nd-year player at a position of need. What would Femi Oladejo need to do this year for you to feel good about his trajectory, says Spencer?
I think be a productive piece of the rotation who looks like he knows what he's doing and,
on the field.
Yeah. Well, on the field for starters, for sure.
Availability is the best skill, right?
Right now, there's no reason to expect anything of him because we haven't seen him do anything. Yeah. So he's kind of starting from zero. He's got a long way to go to gain confidence of the coaches, though they'll tell him, he's winning them over in the opportunities he has. And for fans and media, I mean, we haven't seen anything yet. So he's like a rookie.
The OTAs and minicamp, while they are not important, big picture wise, for players, especially like Jeff Simmons, they do seem more important when a new coach and an injured player at a position of need don't get a chance to be together on the field. Now, I know they're together in meeting rooms and they're doing all the other stuff, but Femi not being out there at all at any point, even if it's not anybody's fault, it's just an injury, that feels like you're setting a guy back, unfortunately. And again, through no fault of anybody's. It just is what it is.
Well, it's one thing to miss the spring. It's another thing if he's not out there day one of training camp. That really sets guys back. Missing training camp for young players.
Yep.
Missing training camp practices really sets guys back. And I counted it up. And I said, they've got to make those offensive line decisions off 16 padded practices. Well, those 16 padded practices are pretty big for Femi Oladejo as well. And anybody in a situation like his 16, you got to show in 16. And 3 of those 16 are in Santa Clara and here against Seattle and the Bears.
Good, really good teams. It says Daniel Caribbean says, Braden, you've mentioned several times a plan for Tony Adams. Can you elaborate on that? I don't think I've done that. Did you mention that? A plan for Tony
Adams is the big nickel, right? As of right now. I mean, Saleh said very clearly out at the owners' meetings,
I think he's the first off the bench.
We've got a corner nickel and we've got a big nickel, which is our third safety. And the third safety right now is Tony Adams. Pretty, without question. There's not another candidate for third.
No, there's not.
Third safety. So,
yep, there you go. All right. Look, I think fans can be, cautiously optimistic about defense making, general progress. I don't think they're going to be a great unit. I think they can be better than the Jags, better than the Colts. I think they're going to be worse than the Texans, but I think being the second best defense in this division, if you can get the second best offense or the number 3 offense in the division, you might have a chance to get to 8 or 9 wins. And I think that's at the high end of where fans should set their expectations. Is if everything goes right.
If you had the second best defense in the division and the third best offense, I think you'd have a pretty good chance of being the second best team. In the division. Now,
I agree.
It's no guarantee that's a wild card, but there's a chance.
But again, I don't think it would take much for that to happen. And I think that directly translates to probably +4, +5 wins from last year. To go from 3 to 7 or 3 to 8, I don't think is out of the question. I think that's a reasonable expectation for people. Which is, if you are 8 and 9, or what is that the right number? 8 and 9, 9 and 8, is that right? Yeah. If you are basically 500 in modern NFL terms, that means every Sunday you are largely competitive. That's what that means. You're going to win half of close games. You're going to lose half your close games.
You get blown out maybe a couple times, and you might blow.
That's right.
Out.
That's right. All right. PaulKuharsky.com, Sinkers Beverages. Also, I'm going to drop the. We're going back on with the Press Forward survey. We need some more survey responses. So PK, if you want to share that, if people want to, it's pressforwardmidtn.news. I'm going to put the link back in the show notes per podcast, back in the YouTube page. We could use some more survey respondents, so we're kind of back on doing that again here for another month or so. So make sure you do that. Help us figure out what is good about news coverage in this market. And obviously, PaulKuharsky.com is one of the things that's good about news coverage in the market. So are the shows across the 440 Sports Network. So check them all out as well. Nick and I will do the offense. Paul and I just did the defense. Nick and I will do the offense coming up later this week. We got Club and Country covering the World Cup in Nashville SC. We got SEC Football Live Gold Standard covering the NHL Draft this week. So make sure you check out that as well over at Lower Broad Hockey. Subscribe there. So just go support good local people doing local work. For Paul, I am Braden. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for listening. Thank you to all you guys for jumping into the comments section. We will talk to you next time. Peace and love.
See you.